Hi, Steve. I'm going to keep this as brief as I can. I'm not really that great at keeping my thoughts organized, but I responded to you back in the day with a different channel. The name was @PeacePeace, and admittedly I was very naive about, what you and other TFLers go through. I am married. I got a lot of flack for it. I don't really care though. I think a lot of people in these MRA, TFL, MGTOW, FML, whatever, are all, a lot of them are basically just bitter and are not doing anything constructive. But anyways, I do like what you said in your last video, and this is basically a blanket response to the last, the videos you've been coming out with since, I want to say late 2014, just your last installment of videos. Just wanted to respond to a few points. I guess the first thing I'll go with is that I do like the idea, at least the stated idea, of MGTOW, in that it is men going their own way because of the way society is now. Now, are these men actually doing anything constructive? Especially when it comes to these videos. I don't know enough about it to make a definitive statement, but I will say I've just noticed a lot of ranting, raving, and bitterness, and a lot of anecdotal proof and evidence of things, and not any kind of scientific approach to these problems and overcoming them and actually getting results. So the premise is good. The results, from what I've observed, don't seem to be. I mean, according to what the men are still ranting and raving about. So, but that kind of gets to my two other points. Now, I disagree with you on a couple things, and one of them is I hear you quite often say that a lot of these TFLers, MGTOWers, MRAs, whatever, the younger ones, they're just bitter about sex and the lack thereof. And I know a lot about sex and the lack thereof because I'm married. And believe me, you have hardly any more sex married or less sex married than you will if you are single. And even if you're a TFL or whatever, okay? It's not as great as you would think it is. It is better. I'm not going to be naive about it, but it's still a bitter struggle. And so basically, back to my point, I disagree with you on the sex thing, and the way you kind of basically almost make fun of these younger men. Now, in their mind, sex is just a purely physical thing, and obviously in your mind it is too. And even though some of you might concede that it also has an emotional component, but I will say that sex is physical, it's emotional, but it's also spiritual, which is why there's so many lingering effects from sex. If you are married or in a long-term relationship and you had a sexual past, it will haunt you. Your spouse or partner's sexual past will haunt you, and that's because sex is a mingling of souls, and you leave a part of yourself with other people when you have sex. And yes, you can try to make it meaningless in your mind, but that's just not the way sex was made. And I believe it was made, created by God, which is why I believe it's a spiritual mingling of souls, and which is why I agree with that Alex Ansari guy on at least that. I'm not into the conspiracy theory stuff. I think that's a disease. Being, outside the box is fine, but the whole obsession with conspiracy theories, I think, is just a waste of time. But he's right in that this is a spiritual issue, and that will get to my next point. But basically, to these young men, whether they know it or not, and they may think in their mind it's a physical thing only, but they crave that emotional connection and that spiritual connection. We're built to crave that. So it's very much a part of this suffering and struggle that, these men are going through, and women as well. So to get to my other point about it being a spiritual thing, the default position of women is to be manipulative and to be evil and to use sex for their advantage. Just like men will use their physical strength to their advantage to get sex or whatever else. And men also manipulate and vice versa. But evil is the default position of human beings. And the world is slipping further into evil. Now, a lot of people do not like that worldview, that humans are naturally evil. But if you test it, you will find that it's true. A child does not have to be taught how to be evil and selfish and manipulative. Okay, it has to be instilled in a child to be selfless and kind and sharing, not the other way around. And if you just look at the world and the way things are going, it's slipping more and more into evil on a global scale. Things are globalized now, which is why the way women are is spreading to not just the Western world, but to other, East Asia, parts of South Asia, any place that isn't, maybe completely politically dominated like Russia, or spiritually dominated like the Muslim world. That's the way women are. And it's, if you can look at the world through those lenses, and not look at women as the enemy, and just realize that what they are doing is basically slipping to their default, then I just think it's a better way to look at the world. And also, look at yourself that way too. I am younger than you. I'm only 30 years old. But these are the things in my life, in the 3 decades that I've lived, that I have found to be true and to be confirmed over and over again. And even in my own marriage, dealing with women, I have noticed that when I have conflicts with my wife, it is either a combination of me slipping to my default way of thinking as a man, of wanting to, just dominate or to be angry. I mean, I'm not physically violent, but it's because I resist my human nature. And but it's her nature to be manipulative, to get her way, because she can't physically dominate me and or won't. So this is a conflict. This is something that single and married women and men go through. And like I said, I'm on the outside looking in when it comes to being single and finding a spouse or whatever, because I am married. But I do have a fascination with this plight. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.